In this episode of This Week in Photo, it's all about privacy. This is TWiP. Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of This Week in Photo. I'm your host, Frederick Van Johnson. If you've been watching the news this week or last week or whatever, or this year, or this decade, you know that privacy has been an ongoing concern for anybody that uses anything, that uses any sort of data. There's been breaches, everyone from Target to everyone, all banking industries, and now Marriott, and it's all over the place. So, which, for a society that is so reliant on e-commerce and online cloud storage and those sorts of things, it's kind of problematic. So I figured we would do a show. I'd bring some smart people on to talk about this, and we'd do a show to talk about this sort of privacy issue and breaches and hacking from a photographer standpoint. Like, how can you safeguard yourself? And is it even possible to safeguard yourself and your data and your photos online in this climate of sort of hacking and breaches? So to do that, I've got two people on. I've got Mr. Martin Bailey, who you've seen before. Welcome to the show, Martin. Welcome back.
Hey, Frederick. It's nice to be back.
Yeah, it's good to have you. And also a brand new face. Look at this brand new face in here, Mr. Josh Fagans. Josh and I go way back. Josh and I worked at Apple at the same time. There was a little bit of overlap there at Apple. And Josh had something to do with a little app that some people know of or are familiar with called iPhoto. Josh, tell us a little bit of your pedigree and your dealings with iPhoto.
Well, thanks for having me on, Frederick. Yeah, I go back to the very first version of iPhoto, and I guess technically made it all the way through every version of iPhoto, but also spent a bunch of time working on Aperture as well. So yep. It was a good long stint there.
It's good. So you literally had an impact on millions of photographers' lives in the way that they manage photos and edit photos and share photos and all that, and the industry in general, because Aperture and iPhoto were the ones to beat for Adobe and Lightroom, right?
Unless anybody had problems with that software, then no.
yeah, that's support. That's not my department. Well, welcome, man. It's good to have you on, and I'm looking forward to having your brain, your common sense brain, and your engineering brain to talk about this whole privacy issue. I know you have some thoughts about this, and this little heads up for the audience. You and I, Josh, are going to do a one-on-one interview in a little bit, and it's going to be focused on software and artificial intelligence and where that stuff is going and where it might go in terms of our daily lives, and is it good, bad, or ugly? So stay tuned for that in the future. So Martin Bailey, what about you, man? What's been going on? Like I say, every time you're on the show, you and I talk, and you're like, oh yeah, I just got back from Madagascar. Or I just got back from the Himalayas. Where are you just back from now?
I'm just back from Morocco. Had a great trip, but a bit of a rocky start. So I think we're going to talk about it later. Had a bit of a fiasco. Held up for 2 hours in customs as they tried to take my camera bag away from me.
Really? Do tell me. It's the Reader's Digest. Why did they want to take your camera bag away from you?
Well, they asked me one leading question. Well, two leading questions. Are you a photographer? I've got a bag that's got 2 cameras and 3 lenses in there. Oh, yes, I'm a photographer. The second thing they did was sort of frog march me into the customs office and asked me, do your cameras shoot video? Not, are you here to shoot video or anything like that? Do your cameras shoot video? And I said, yes, but I'm here to shoot stills. And they said, you have to leave your bag here. You can't leave the airport with your bag. And it was, I'll go into the details later, but it was a little bit of a traumatic, horrible experience. And I think I'm actually just not going back to Morocco next year. I really enjoyed the last few tours I've done there, but I think that they've shot themselves in the foot.
You were so excited about that trip too.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah. We had a wonderful 12-day trip. I've got some amazing photos to share with people over the next few weeks on my blog. But, if that's how they're going to treat people. It was an unprovoked attack, and in the end I had to threaten them with social networks and damaging their economy for the next few years. So and they let me go. But yeah, I'll tell you the full details a little later.
Yeah, we have that in the notes. I would definitely want to get to that. But let's dive into the topic of the evening, and that's the topic of privacy. Let me set the stage for the conversation. So this week, Google, the CEO of Google, was testifying before Congress, about. The main thrust of that conversation was how much influence do search engines like Google have over the results, and are they skewing the results and bias one way or another? Either towards one party or away from one party or whatever. So that was the gist of that. But on the heels of that, Google. They had already announced that they were killing Google Plus, right? So Google Plus was already on the chopping block to go away, but because of recent breaches, they've rolled that forward and say they're gonna shut it down a couple of months early. So that was another sort of mark on my sort of list of what to talk about this week. And then I saw this other article that I read that was Apple is under fire. Quote, under fire, because third-party apps are allegedly reporting user location data and some other information without the user's consent. So if some of these apps are automatically turning on location, transmitting and reporting back to the mothership without us knowing, and which is kind of bad. They had an example of the app tracking people going to Planned Parenthood and then to the lawyer, those kinds of things, which you kind of don't want people knowing your business like that, especially an app that you paid $1 for, So not with, it's that kind of stuff is just really scary to me. And then the other thing I wanted to throw in here just to chat about was this is the holiday season, and one of the hottest gifts, I think last year, year before, and this year has been the Amazon Echo devices and Google Home and Apple's HomePod. And these are these devices that are always listening to you. They're listening for a keyword, and then when they hear their name, then they'll respond to whatever you've asked them. So I wanted to get the panel's thoughts on that as well. Do you have one? Are you worried about that? Is that technology going to be hacked? Are we going to find out next month that people from hostile nations were listening to us talk about stuff in our own homes? So all that is the topic of this show. And then it's all wrapped up into how do we, we know that there's a problem. So how do we safeguard our stuff? Maybe it's not possible. Maybe it is possible. But how do we safeguard our data, especially our assets and our images online in case of a breach or an attack like this? Josh Fagans, I want to start with you, man. You have an impressive engineering background. You understand this stuff. You understand the world. I aspire to be as knowledgeable about technology and geeky stuff as you are. So we're going to start with you, buddy. So what do you think about this? Here's a pointed question. Is privacy even possible in this age that we're in right now, or are breaches just inevitable?
I guess I would tend towards yes, breaches are inevitable, and that's just going to happen. And I think you're only even touching the very edge of what we could or could not, I guess, worry about. I mean, there's this is not a new problem in a lot of ways. Whenever you use a credit card, people are able to track all kinds of information. And, that's still true, and even maybe more so true when you think of the additional companies that are now watching that credit card information when you set up things like Google Wallet or Apple Pay. On top of just things like that, you add in the ability of all your ISPs to track your data and then sell it. Mm-hmm. Your browser history data, I don't know what's more sort of private than that. Yeah. And so, just layers upon layers of that. Now, the good news in terms of kind of like the raw data, the raw pixels that you sort of touched on, is that that's often stored in an encrypted way. So that data is actually safer than a lot of other data. Than ironically, your personal bank numbers and things like that. So I actually worry less about, like somebody stealing a picture from, Dropbox or something like that, because that data is almost always stored in an encrypted fashion. So they can't actually steal that really easily. It's more this other stuff, like where did I go today? That people are getting through these, sort of applications. But, let's not forget that cell phone data has been there with a little bit less fidelity for quite a long time, too. So a lot of this is not that new. It's just something that bubbles up every once in a while.
Yeah. But it bubbles up every once in a while, but the landscape that it's bubbling up in changes, right? So it's bubbling up now in the era of Cambridge Analytica, and Facebook and all this other craziness going on. It's already got, I can't speak for all people, but it's got me nervous about, well, should I post that now? Or who's looking over my shoulder? I don't want to be paranoid. If you rewind back 10 years, it was just like, oh, yeah, just post anything. Who cares? It's safe. Who needs a password management app? I'll just write my passwords on a yellow sticky and put them under my desk. Those were those days. And now we're a little bit more savvy. And I wonder, the scary thing is, and Josh, I want to have you continue on this. The scary thing is, as a consumer, I feel like we're being spoon-fed the information about what's happening behind the scenes. And I feel like just next week, maybe next month, maybe next year, we're going to find out, back in 2019 or 2018, all this crazy stuff was happening, and now it's only coming to light because so-and-so got indicted. Are we heading towards that, or is it safe to put our stuff online, or should we just roll back to to the 80s? Go back to our Commodore 64s and VIC 20s.
Yeah, I guess I fall into the maybe paranoid camp is the right way to put it. I don't really think any data that you put out there is particularly safe. These, hackers are just maliciously trying to find any way in to do whatever, whatever they want. The other thing not to lose sight of is, on the one side, you have people kind of hacking in and doing things like this, but then kind of in broad daylight, companies also do all kinds of things that you might not even know about or think about, probably the latter, right? So I don't know if you remember, this is like 10 years ago or something like that, the story about the targeting people who were pregnant. I don't know if you know about this.
I did.
Do you remember that?
Yep.
Right. So they're tracking something like 25 different products. And as soon as people start buying these products, they know with this incredibly high certainty that somebody in that household is pregnant. And not only do they know that, they actually know when the baby's going to be born. And they start sending mailings out. And this led to this father who was all upset, and he called Target and was, kind of chewing people out, only to later find out that his daughter was in fact pregnant, right? And he had no idea. Yeah. And so it's just like these little, 25 products that Target zeroed in on that let them figure this out. Now you multiply that now times however much data is out there on things that you do, from browser, history to Facebook posts, and then you factor location in. Mm-hmm. What don't they know about you, really?
Yeah, they probably know more about us than we know about ourselves. Like they could say, hey, Mark Bailey, we know every Friday you go to that Pinkberry and you get this and you buy for it with this particular card, and then you go over to Target and then you do this. They can tell that, right? So, Martin, how do you feel about this? This whole, as a working professional photographer, leading tours, running the world, you live in Tokyo right now. Like, are you worried about this, and if so, what's the solution?
I'm not really worried. I'm a paranoid person in many ways. Like my backup procedures and things for my data are absolutely ridiculous because I don't want to lose anything. But as far as privacy is concerned, I'm kind of I fall the other way in that, I really don't do anything that is going to really interest anybody. If someone wants to try to sell me something, I find it interesting that whenever I'm thinking about something on Amazon, all of a sudden an email comes through that is introducing this something in the same product line, and I'm like, how did they're in my head now? You know, it's like, but that's just clever engineering and checking what I'm looking at online. And I mean, one of the common things that, you know, how there's like people have been selling. You log on, you create an account on online somewhere, and the less, you know, I don't want to use sort of too nasty terms, but there are people out there that basically they take your data and then they'll just sell it.
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, if you're online and you've had any sort of forum or user community, the chances are, I mean, obviously I would never do it. I'm a conscientious business owner, but people are selling data. And now I keep getting these emails, and they're probably pretty common, but someone asking for $800 to not show the video of me doing something that, you know, they hacked into my video camera when I logged onto a porn site. Yeah. And and the good thing there is I lead such a boring life. I've never logged onto a porn site, so I can delete them instantly because I know that it's crap. Yeah. So, you know, but those emails come through with my email, and often a password that's legit. Yeah. It's a password that I was using. So somebody has sold that data. It's scary, but, you know, now for the last, 5-6 years, I've used, 1Password, and every service that I sign up for, I create a unique, very difficult to understand password. I can't type them out because they're all long and full of digits and things. Yeah. So I just keep all of that separate now. And luckily, all of the passwords that are coming through on these email, and I'm getting like one a week with various email addresses and things. But it's all an old password that I used to use when I used to have one password for everything because it's easier to remember. So I don't think it's a big issue for me. I am concerned that we're being watched to the level that we are. But my life is like, it's either, I can imagine a hacker sitting there saying, "Oh, let's go and check out what Martin Bailey's doing today." They've got into my iPhone signal. He's in that office in his room again. Yeah. It's like every day, you know. Yeah. And then all of a sudden for 2 weeks I'll zip off and I'll go to somewhere and I'll be on the other side of the planet for a while. But then I'll come back and I'm sitting in my office again. And it's like, you know, so what if they know. You know, that I'm sort of sitting here leading a relatively boring life when I'm not on the road. Yeah,
but here's a twist that I would throw on that, though, because we're talking about breaches and people looking at your data and copying it, and, you know, maybe even like you're saying, Martin, you know, bribing or extorting you using that data. But data is two-way, right? Or it's a two-way street. And then living in this world of guilty until proven innocent, you could destroy someone's life by literally destroy their life. A hacker could by saying, you know what? In a hidden folder on your machine, I just put a bunch of images that are a felony. And if you don't give me 50 grand tomorrow, I'm going to tell the police that you have images, and I'm going to put them all over the place, and you won't find anything. They could write nefarious data to your accounts versus just brute force. I'm stealing money out of your bank account, or, you know, I'm looking at your passwords, or I'm extorting you. Josh, am I off base here? I mean, if you could read data, couldn't you theoretically write data?
Yeah, that is something that could potentially happen. You know, you definitely want to keep your kind of routers and your firewalls and all that kind of business up to date to kind of to do whatever you can to prevent that kind of issue. Yeah, I guess my concerns about privacy don't quite stretch to that Machiavellian level that you're going to.
I'm painting a bleak picture here, but, you know, I know it's not that bad, but, you know.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, for me, my concerns lie more with what appeared to at least be maybe at first blush anyway, these vanilla uses of our data, right? Like Target tracking the things that I purchase, you know, my ISP tracking where I go. You know, I think about things like One of the latest things I've seen is, if you have a Fitbit or some kind of other health device, right, that's tracking your health, hey, you can get a cheaper health insurance with that, as long as you say, you have to send us your data, right? You're okay with sending your data to, oh yes, I actually ran as much as I said I ran, or, that level of sharing of data makes me really uncomfortable. What's next?
Yeah. I mean, the idea of looking at this, I mean, the whole premise of the show is a little bit, kind of stoking paranoia, I recognize that, but at the same time, if humans can find a way to do something jacked up, they'll do it, right? So as we've learned over the past several years, humans have a really good ability to do crazy stuff to each other, right?
I absolutely believe that. And I think some of the kinks haven't been ironed out with these things like the echoes that all of a sudden think they heard their secret keyword to start listening, even though you didn't mean to, right? Yep. And, there are some stories about things that have happened because of that. The developers try to do everything they can, but developers make mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the developers are humans too. So it's
exactly
humans developing for humans. Martin, what's the solution to all this? I mean, we could segue this into the whole echo conversation. I'm being careful not to say the trigger word. So we could segue this into that whole echo conversation. The paranoia that some people have, and I have multiple of those devices in the house. But the paranoia that some people have around the man is always listening to me. We heard similar arguments when, back in the day, I don't know if you guys are old enough to know about this, but back in the day when GPS first started hitting and people were like, the man is watching everything I do. They're looking at me. Now he can really do that if he wanted to and listen to you. Martin, do you feel that way? I mean, what's your thoughts on these always on, always listening devices?
I think if it worries you, just don't buy them. I think I'll probably end up getting the Apple HomePod. Is it? I want that as a speaker. I'm probably going to get two, so I've got stereo TV and stuff like that. But I mean, at the moment, it doesn't speak Japanese, so they're not selling them in the Japanese market. But as soon as they're available, I'll probably get one or two. But I don't really use Siri and stuff. I'm sort of sitting there in the car sometimes. I have to wait till I stop at traffic lights to do something with my phone, and because I'm not that big into sort of speaking at things. I don't know why. I don't feel too comfortable just talking to a machine in the first place. So I don't know if there's a way to turn those features off and just use it as a speaker, or I might leave it on and just take my chances. It really doesn't matter to me that much, but. I mean, I think the solution really is just if these things bother you to the point that they make you uncomfortable, then just don't buy the devices. That's the simple answer.
Yeah. I mean, and like we've talked about on the show before that the argument, like you kind of touched on, Martin, the whole argument of, well, you know what, I'm not doing anything wrong. So, if you're not doing anything wrong, why are you worried? And then the privacy advocates will counter and say, well, no, it's not. You're giving up your rights by being sort of lackadaisical about your privacy, even if you're not doing, even if you're, you like to sit in your underwear and eat Twizzlers while watching Black Mirror. That's your business. I'm not talking about me. But if you if you want to do that, if I want to do that, that should be my business. And I don't want to get Twizzlers ads served up to me later, and, on Netflix or on Google or whatever. Or conversely, if there's an always on speaker system listening to me, I want to have a conversation, with someone in my home. I don't want to scrubbed for keywords and then have ads served to me later like, oh, I hear you're going to Disneyland, you might want to get this thing. I don't want that to happen. Josh, is that a future that could happen, or am I just being a paranoid sort of Luddite about it?
I actually think that is a feature that can happen unless we legislate against it. I'm old fashioned, and I don't like to speak to my devices just like Martin does. So I don't have any of these things. It's just not natural for me, and my fingers are really fast on the keyboard. Yeah. But having said that, my daughter does incredible amounts of dictation into her phone to do texting. Right. That's instead of typing it in, she actually speaks it out loud. So I think this is probably a generational thing that's going to change in the future. Yeah. But to me, these devices are a little too new to have all of the bugs flushed out. And I think that will happen. I think hopefully we can prevent, like you said, Twizzlers from coming up in between commercial breaks on YouTube. Right. But if they don't, then they're will use that data, right? They will, you see all those sci-fi movies where the guy's walking down the street and the customized avatar turns on and it's like, hey, Frederick, you want to come in and buy the new Amazon Echo? It's right here for you. Yeah. So that kind of, we haven't really even seen that, proximity marketing and identity, mining out and about that I think we're getting awfully close to seeing pretty soon.
Yeah. It's scary. I mean, it goes both ways, right? I mean, it's scary, but on the other hand, as we know from marketing, advertising works, especially if you're in the mindset and you want something, and they're kind of doing you a favor by telling you, hey, Martin, I know you're thinking about this HomePod. There's an Apple store right there that has them on sale for 25% off for the next 10 minutes. Go get it, So that's helpful versus the Twizzler argument. We'll call it the not yet happened Twizzler incident. All right, well, guys, let's segue into this topic. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Josh. I know that you're working on some cool stuff over there, and I wanted to use a little bit of the time to sort of talk about that. And we started the show with kind of giving a little bit of your history with Apple and working on software over there, and now you're sort of bringing to bear. You're no longer at Apple, but you're bringing to bear that expertise and some pain points that you had in the photography space onto a new product that you're working on. You want to tell us about that a little bit so we can get a better understanding of what it is? This
all comes about from just trying to solve a personal problem. So I left Apple, and partly because of, my role at Apple, I ended up, when I sat down at home, I ended up finding I had, these partially redundant photo libraries strewn across endless numbers of drives, and you just no way to really kind of bring this all together in a nice way. And I just, for me, having a way to just organize all of these photos was something that I found lacking. I went out into the marketplace to see if I could find a solution for this problem instead of trying to make one, and I couldn't find one that I really thought kind of nailed that one part of the problem, the organization part, that I just think is actually the most important thing. And most products are just kind of ignoring this. So, when I was at Apple, I was really fortunate enough to sit down with a lot of pros across many different fields, like weddings, National Geographic photographers, sports photographers. And in a few cases, I actually got to be able to see them, up close doing their work and saw how they kind of attack these problems. And, what I've done is sort of brought that expertise to bear in a new software product that's really about taming these huge sets of data that we have that just cross all of these drives.
You and I sort of talked back and forth offline about the issue of keywording and how some people do it and some people don't, and tagging and all that stuff. Well, first of all, the name of the app is Next Photo. That's the name of the app, right?
Yeah, correct. The name is Next Photo, and you can go to nextphoto.com to get kind of more information about this. But what I saw was that many applications have a lot of the tools necessary to do this organization, but none of them actually teach you how to do it, or more importantly, kind of lead you through that process. So Next Photo, the big difference is it actually leads you through the process. You have a set of photos that you just got back taking, 100 photos, 1,000 photos, whatever. It leads you through the process of getting down to just your select photos from that large set through a multi-step process that's totally configurable for the user. So it's set up to be a 3-step process when it comes out of the box, if you will. But you can reconfigure it to do whatever you want. And, it's getting to that. I mean, this has been something I've wanted to do for a long time, but it's just getting to that set that really, for all of us, whether we like it or not, that very small set of really good images. And then, making it really easy to get back to that small set of images and making it really easy to never lose that organization that you've done as you move those photos around across all your devices.
Well, so where are you in the development process right now with Next Photo? Is it ready for prime time? Can people go kick the tires on it?
So I feel like we're at a beta stage right now. So go kick some tires. I'd love for as many people to go download the app, kick some tires. I'd love to get feedback. Gone through quite a few iterations, defining these features, but I'm really interested to find out if this is really making a difference for people and has the right feature set for people. Because we can add things or tweak things if we need to, if that's really what people want. So yes, please go get it.
Where's it at? What's the download link?
Nextphoto.com.
Cool.
You can go there, enter your email, and then we'll send you a link to get the app. I should point out this is a Mac platform only application at the moment. I know I've gotten
Windows. What's the matter with you? Come on.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting that you say that. A lot of people, as I go around doing different photography things, a lot of people are using PCs. It seems like there was a time when almost everybody was on Macs, but that time seems to have abated a little bit. So, yeah, getting a little bit of guff over that.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be the ongoing battle between Mac, Windows, Mac OS, iOS, and now Android. Right? Those are the 4 legs of the table that ultimately you as a developer are going to have to, you're going to get people crying uncle that you haven't satisfied their needs yet. So, well, cool, man. So Next Photo, folks that are watching and listening to this, head over to nextphoto.com and give Josh some feedback. Sign up and bang on the software and give him some feedback on it. That'd be fantastic. And also,
I should point out. Sorry, Frederick. I should point out the app doesn't touch your files at all. That's one of the keys. You can store the photos however you want in your file system, but it will never touch your files. It will never recompress them. It will never change even the EXIF headers or anything like that. That's sort of a core tenet of mine is, don't mess with people's data and their photos.
That's cool. So it's just looking at, so if you've built a tree already on your drive, you just point it at that tree and it'll do the right thing.
It'll do its thing. That's right.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, congratulations, man. It sounds like that's the classic Silicon Valley story, right? Of man has issue, man solves issue for himself. Other people say, I have that issue too. Hook me up. And like you and I were talking about before, man buys island in the South Pacific, and then you're done.
Yeah, well, it's the second step of man needs to get the word out. That's proving to be an interesting challenge. So yeah,
there you go. Well, we'll do our part. We'll get the word out on this.
Thanks.
Cool. Hey, Martin. I wanted to continue the discussion on that you started on your Moroccan adventures, and how now you're a wanted felon in Morocco. So what's what's going on there? What happened? So the way you set it up was you went to the airport and they asked you if you had a device that could record video, which I would argue every cell phone and every camera made today can record video, or computer for that matter, or tablet.
Right.
So they asked you if you had cameras that could record video. You said yes, and they tried to confiscate your stuff. What? Give us the deeper dive into that.
Yeah, so, you know, as I said, they asked me those two leading questions. Are you a photographer, and do your cameras shoot video? And then they rolled their eyes and said, you can't take your bag from here. And I said, you know, I'm here to shoot stills. I showed them my stills on my phone from last year. They could see that I'm a predominantly still photographer. And they were just adamant. They would not let me leave. I mean, while we were talking, to be completely honest, I was pilfering lenses from my own bag. They were going from while they were looking away, I was taking lenses out and putting them in my vest pocket. But they're my lenses, and I figured that was fine. But they, so basically 2 hours it took, and it turns out that, you know, I was working with a tour operator, a travel operator that runs these tours in Morocco, as I always do, because, you know, you've got to keep everything above board. Mm-hmm. And I was able to call them because what they said was, you need authorization or permission to bring these in to shoot. Basically, they didn't say it, but it was to shoot video. So all they were telling me was, you need permission, you need an approval. So I called the tour operator, the travel partner that I use for Morocco, and I had them call the government. I was given a piece of paper that said I'd got to go to the minister, meaning, of course, Ministry of Communication in Rabat, which is the capital of Morocco, the political capital of Morocco. Yeah. And so I had my travel people call the Ministry of Communication in Rabat and ask them what kind of approval I needed. And they called them and they said, there is no approval to bring cameras into Morocco to shoot still video. Mm. So I'm there straight to shoot still photographs. And I'm standing in their office and I said, we've just called Rabat, and there is nothing that I can get. You're holding my gear here now on no grounds. I cannot get permission, approval, whatever, to bring this in to shoot still photography. Oh. And it turns out, this is something that I learned later from the travel. You do have to have prior permission and approval to shoot video in Morocco. And this is not like lifting your iPhone up and photographing a guy on a camel. It's to make movies, to make short movies, or to make commercials. You know, like basically commercial filming. Yeah. You do have to get prior approval. Fine, you get it if you're doing that. I wasn't. I was there to make still photography predominantly. I have some video on my iPhone. You know, great. So does everyone else. But I said to them, every camera that people are walking through here now that was made in the last 10 years can shoot video. You're holding me with these for no reason. Mm-hmm. And when people have been saying maybe it was a language thing. It wasn't. Whenever they didn't understand what I was saying, they had me type it into a cell phone and they looked at the Moroccan translation of it. They knew exactly what I was saying. So in the end, I got no way. I was hitting my head against a brick wall for almost 2 hours. And in the end, I said to them, where's your manager? I want to talk to your manager. And he took me out to the guy that had frog marched me into the customs office. It was the same guy. And I said, you understand what I'm saying? You understand enough English to understand what I'm saying, right? And he said, yes. I said, so if you keep my gear, I'm going to go outside with my iPhone and I'm going to shoot a video of myself, and it will be telling everybody what's just happened to me. And I know enough people to get this viral in 24 hours. Millions of people will be watching this video, and you will be responsible for damaging tourism and losing a large chunk of tourism money in your country. Are you ready to take that responsibility? So
ballsy move there, Bailey. Ballsy move.
So he took me to his manager, and his manager said, are you going to be shooting video? I said, no. I said, I'm here to make still photographs. And he said, come back in here. So we went back into the customs room, And he said, write that down, that you're here to shoot stills, you're not going to be shooting video, and just sign it. So I wrote down on the back of a piece of paper that they gave me. I just wrote down, I Martin Bailey, I've come to Morocco to shoot still photos, and I will not be shooting video. Mm-hmm. And then I dated it and signed it, and they let me go. And it took two hours, and it was, honestly, it felt like I was walking along the street and 3 thugs came out of an alley and took me inside and gave me a kick in for 20 minutes. Yeah. Well, for an hour and 50 minutes.
That sounds, that sounds like, I smell something fishy. That sounds like somebody in Morocco was trying to build their own version of the Moroccan B&H or something,
I asked, I thought I saw a guy go in there, and I'm not sure. They were talking in Moroccan. I'm not sure exactly what the conversation was about, but I saw someone who appeared to be haggling on the amount of money he was paying for the 2 iPhones that he'd got with him that was still boxed up. Jeez. And I said to them, I didn't say, do you want a bribe? But I did say to them, and I actually typed this into their terminal, and so that they could see exactly what I was asking. I said, can I pay a fee to get through with my gear? And the answer, to their credit, the answer was no. They weren't trying to get a bribe. They just decided that they were going to have a go at me. So here's the thing. I released a post about this on my blog 2 weeks ago, basically a warning to people going to Morocco for photography. There's 2 things that I want to really stress. One is, if you're asked if your cameras shoot video, say no. Mm-hmm. If you are going to Morocco to shoot it, to make a video, get the approval. Don't take a drone to Morocco. Don't take a drone to any African country, because they're pretty much banned everywhere.
They're banned throughout the continent of Africa?
You can get permission for some countries, but it's very hard to get. I was told for Namibia that unless you work for National Geographic, don't even bother to apply. Oh, and the reason is, and I'm totally with this, the reason is that a drone in the hand of a poacher is a very, very handy tool. Mm-hmm. And I've seen enough elephants and rhinos without their horns and tusks to be totally with that. I don't need drone footage of Namibia if there's a chance that I would lose it to a poacher. Fine, get that. Yeah. But the other thing the other side of it is that I did want to stress as well that Morocco is still a beautiful country, and I've decided pretty much that I'm not going back next year. But it's not just because of this video thing. I'm still making my mind up. I've got a few weeks to make my mind up, and I might do it again. But I wanted to just stress that Morocco is a beautiful country. That, there's a lot of poverty, and there are people there that will get a little bit sort of, give you some negative vibes over photography. They try to ask for money for every photo you want to take. That's fine if that's how you want to work. And I do. I paid one guy $10 for a photo. I mean, it's like he wanted 20, but he had a really good face. I got some really nice photos of him. Yeah. So I don't mind doing that. Morocco is a beautiful place. I don't want to put people off, but I do want to give you the warning that if they should decide that they're going to give you a hard time at customs, obviously there are very few cameras these days that cannot shoot video. Yeah, just plead stupid.
I'd be so nervous because I would be, okay, I'm at customs in a foreign country and I'm lying to customs agents. Because
you don't have
like,
to lie.
Oh, this doesn't shoot video, Mr. Johnson, did you say? What's this red button on the top of here? Can you explain what that red button does?
All you would have to do is say, I don't know. I didn't even know it was there. I've never even really thought about it.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to
we
lie.
watch your show, man. Yeah. No, I hear you.
Yeah, that's the thing, though. I mean, it was a pretty traumatic and a very negative experience. Luckily, I'm resilient. I've often said that stubbornness is a virtue. That's how I got my gear out of there after 2 hours. Mm-hmm. But I'm pretty resilient. I bounced back. I felt pretty negative for a little while. I should say as well that as soon as I walked out of the airport with my bag, I met my guide, And I also was overheard telling my guide about the experience I'd just had. And this young guy, I think his name was Fair, he came over and said, I've just overheard your conversation. Please don't feel too bad about Morocco. He said, we're not all like that. And he disappeared, and he came back with a short tube of Pringles and a bottle of water for me. This guy was so kind. And I'm like, you know, and he'd got a really kind face. He'd got one of the big, thick sort of Islamic beards and everything, but he'd got the kindest eyes. And I was like, you know, this is going to turn it around for me. And then on the way out, the last traumatic, I'd caught a cold, and I was really, really ill for over 10 days with this really bad cold. And I was fighting the worst of it as I was coming back home. And I got to the airport, and a guy in the same suit that had stopped me for 2 hours on the way in, different person, but he x-rayed my bag, and he asked me if I'm a photographer, and I thought, oh, Jesus, not again.
Here we go.
And I said yes, and he said, where have you been? And I told him I went through each place. You know, we went to Chefchaouen, we've been to Fez, we've been up to the Sahara. You know, and then we went to, and I went through it all. And he said, "Did you have a good time?" And I said, "Yeah, a great time." And he just said, "I hope you come back and see us again." And I mean, I was in a mess. I was like, "Oh Jesus, I just want to get through this place." And I almost cried when he said that. It was like I felt like giving him a hug.
Yeah.
So I do want to stress, you know, Morocco is 99.9% wonderful people. It's a beautiful country. If you want to go, don't let this put you off. But just be aware that there is the risk that you might lose all of your gear on the entrance to the country.
A cautionary tale from the world globetrotting Martin Bailey. Josh, what about you, man? Are you the traveler, and have you had any crazy experiences like that where you may or may not have lost gear?
I have nothing to compare to that at all.
Yeah,
that's something else. I actually love to travel and do travel photography. I find it really gets the creative juices flowing, and just it's really exciting to be in a different culture. Mm-hmm. You know, I haven't been somewhere quite as exotic as Morocco, but it just how things work differently. I find very interesting. Yeah. You know, I will say that, you know, you do need to do a bunch of research before you go, just to understand, you know, what's permissible, what's expected, what's legal, what's not legal, because these things do vary quite a bit as you travel. And it's more even just for protection, your own protection, that you should know, hey, what I'm doing right now is actually perfectly legal. Yeah. And the person that may be giving you a hard time is the one that's in the wrong. So I have had some times where people have gotten upset that I've taken their photo, but that's the extent of it. And I knew that I was, you know, I was doing something that in that country was permissible, but it is uncomfortable sometimes. Yeah. There's no doubt.
Yeah, the only weird sort of customs adventure I had like that was actually returning from Canada. So trying to make it back into my country from Canada, and this is back in, you can tell, you know, the model number of my drones tells you when this happened. This was a Phantom 3 professional. So I had the bag with the Phantom 3 in there and all the batteries and all that stuff. And, you know, you can't check those. So I'm carrying it in a little backpack think tank bag. And so I go through customs, and he's like, oh, you got to open that up. So I open it up, and there's this big white drone, you know, in there. And he's like, what's that? And I was like, it's a drone, you know. He's like, what are you doing with it? I was taking photos, flying around. He's like, okay. And then he called 3 other people over to look at it. They asked me those typical drone questions that people ask. It's usually 3 questions. How much does it cost? How far can it go? And how much battery life? You know, you get those 3 questions. Every drone owner has gotten those questions. They asked me those, and they're like, okay, all right. Welcome home. that was it. That was it. So nothing like you, Martin. Martin, you draw that kind of controversy. I remember, what was it, 2 years ago, you had a run-in with Google online. You remember that? They were for some music infringement or something. You had to pull out the Martin Bailey kick-ass boot again on them, right?
Well, yeah, but you know, that ended with me just deleting all of my videos from YouTube.
Oh, is that all?
You know, Yeah, and that's a shame because YouTube is the platform to be on. Now I have to rely on attracting people to view my videos in some other way. They're on Vimeo, and I've got a few followers, but my bugbear there is that you buy music. I have never. Now I actually just create the music for all of my videos myself. I enjoy doing it, and it means it's always original. But even though I have bought a license for every piece of music I have ever used in a video, you put it online on YouTube, and they slap a copyright infringement on you.
Yeah.
And it's because there's lots of different companies selling the same music. And there is no way they should have what Google need to do if they wanted to actually make a service that was useful for people, is they should give you a way to attach a license to your videos. Mm-hmm. So even, not publicly, just something in the background so that the bots that are out there looking for copyright infringements can say, okay, this is a legitimate license. Yeah. We're not going to bother this guy. Yeah. But what they do is they come and slap a copyright infringement on your video. You have to fight them for it with some very nasty legal language about taking you to court and everything. And then when you finally, literally, I got one removed one afternoon, and within 5 minutes, 3 more bots had flagged the same file. Oh, it was like, including the one that I just got removed. So I'm like, that was it. I said, screw this. I just deleted every video I've ever put on YouTube, and I upgraded my Vimeo account, and now everything's on Vimeo.
Wow, look at that! YouTube, the gateway drug to Vimeo, right?
You know what they're doing? What they're actually doing is they just want you to say, oh yeah, go ahead and put your ads on there. That's all they're after, because their business model is making money on the ads.
Yeah.
So they scare you with these infringements and make you put the ads on. But I don't want ads on my videos. Right. And, I would rather pay them. I pay Vimeo like $300 a year. I'd rather just pay for a YouTube account and buy the right to not have video, not have them on there, and also have the ability to prove that I've got a license for all of the work, all of the video background music that I use.
Yeah, it sounds like a case. I've been wishing for a YouTube Pro type offering for a while. Yeah. I mean, we got YouTube Red or whatever they renamed it to, but where you can not be forced to watch commercials as a consumer or a user. I would love to pay a little bit every month or a year to have certain pro level things like what you're talking about, Martin, where you could. They would look at your account, and before they just knee-jerk flag it with some heavy-handed bot, they would actually go to some humans that will give it the benefit of the doubt before they turn your videos off. So yeah. All right, guys, we are nearing the end of this show. We got to get into the Q&A. Folks in the chat, I want to remind you that get your question in there. Type a question in there. Our good friend Chris Berry will pull that out and put it in the Google Notes for myself and the guests to answer. And also, please give us a thumbs up or a like or something in YouTube to let YouTube know that you've watched it, so they could put some weight on this video and get more people looking at it. I know Martin's not going to be looking at it, but get more people looking at our video. So give us a thumbs up and, and spread the love. Hey, Martin, before... no, go ahead.
I was going to say, I do watch YouTube. I watch videos on YouTube. Yeah, I'm a consumer. I'm just not going to do my own content on there now.
Yeah. Before we move on, I want to give both of you guys a chance to tell us what you're shooting with, specifically because of you, Martin. You've been on several episodes of TWiP, sort of dragging your feet about mirrorless, and now finally... Ladies and gentlemen, Martin Bailey has joined the mirrorless world. Look at that. What is that thing you're holding up, man?
It's the EOS R with the new RF mount 24-105 lens on it. And I'm going to hold this up next to so this is the R, and this next to it is the same, it's the 5D SR with the same lens on it, essentially, the 24-105 f4.
And for those of you that are listening to the audio, in Martin's right hand, he's holding Thor's hammer, and in the left hand, a normal camera.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, I actually, there's a number of reasons why I'm doing this. And one is because I can use this mount, a control ring mount that enables me to put use my old EF lenses on the R, but also, I mean, the R is just a lot smaller, and the whole thing, although it's still a full frame, it's 30 megapixels. I don't think I would have been stopped in Morocco with this. I think I would have been, they wouldn't have even batted an eyelid. But it's a great camera. It's got a really deep grip. I'm not going to put the battery grip on it like I normally do, because I think it's time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's time that I was able to downsize a little bit, and the image quality seems great, and the autofocus is really fast. So I'm going to actually take this. I'm not going to leave my digital SLRs behind. I'm going to take at least one of them, and I'm going to be doing the big high resolution 50 megapixel work as well. But I'm going to try and see if I can shoot eagles swooping down to catch the fish and all of that during my winter tours here in Japan in January and February, and I'll be reporting back on my blog.
Well, let me be one of the first to welcome you to the present, Martin.
Yeah, it took a while, but I mean, really, this was what I was waiting for, because this mount is allowing me to use my current lenses, and they work as fast, if not so even better, with the new mirrorless. So I'm happy. You know, it's not perfect. There's a few things that people are griping about it online, and I agree with some of that. But yeah, I'm really happy that it's there, and I'm happy to be on the dark side now.
I love it. Well, cool. All right. Well, Josh, what about you, man? You're from the man who helps build the tools that we photographers use. What do you shoot with on a daily basis?
At the moment, I'm probably a bit of an oddity in that I actually am shooting with a Leica M10.
Oh yeah, oddity in that you can move your decimal point over and pay that fee for the Leica.
Something like that. I suppose that's part of it. There's a long story there, but the things that the Leica glass can do are just amazing to me. So it's definitely not a camera for everybody, and I am far from expert at it still, even after a while. But it just makes some beautiful photos. It really does.
Love it.
And it's small.
And mirrorless. Look at that.
Yes, it is mirrorless.
All right. Well, cool. All right, guys, let's dive into the chat segment here, and yeah, let's take some questions. The first question looks like it's from Trevor Panaki, and Trevor says, let me read this. He says, "Who do you think should be in charge of protecting our private data? We're leaving it up to Apple, Google, and Facebook, but do they have more of an interest in commoditizing it?" I mean, they are businesses, right? So, Josh, what do you think? I mean, should there be one entity that's in charge of protecting our data?
It's just got to be a government thing. Yes, they have too much interest in making money off of the data, so they are not inclined to do the right thing. I think actually Europe is showing that the government can step in and start to offer some privacy and impose those things on companies, and I think the U.S. is just lagging behind in that regard. It just has to be the government.
Yeah. Martin, what do you say about that? Who should be in control of the data reins?
Me. No, I don't know. I think, yeah, it's definitely governments, but I don't know if I trust governments. You know, they're tapping phones and doing all sorts of things that we don't want them to be doing anyway. So I don't know if I trust the government any more than a company. But, you know, the companies are, as you say, they're all out there to make a buck. And if they can do that with your data, they probably are. I think I totally agree with Josh. You know, the GDPR laws that came in earlier this year in Europe, I think that they're a good move in many ways, but for a conscientious business owner that doesn't want to break the law, I saw my newsletter list basically halve because you have to prompt people to give you to press that opt-in button again, and people that are no longer that interested in what you do just don't do it. So. Right. I think it's hard for people that are trying to make a living from marketing online, especially if you're doing it when you're trying to keep yourself, above board and keep everything done properly. But they're all good moves. I think we need a little bit more enforcement in those areas. So I support it, and that's why I'm using it. Even though it's only a number of companies in Europe, I am not emailing anybody that I don't have the opt-in. So, and that's in any country. So, I think it's up to us as well.
What an impact that GDPR had on internet marketing and, just these solopreneurs that are making money basically through their email lists and social following. Like you said, it halved a lot of our lists in half. And, in a lot of ways I look at it from the standpoint of, if you don't want to be on my list, I don't really want you on my list.
This is true.
Not from a negative, standpoint, but more of, if you don't want to hear the stuff that I'm sending, I don't want you to be subjected to me. If you don't want to be subjected to me, not only that, if you're using a professional ESP or email service provider, you pay by the number of people that, you have on your list. So you do me a favor. If you don't want to hear what I have to say, you're saving me money. Unsubscribe. Everybody's happy after that. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, very cool. All right. Well, thanks, Trevor, for that question. We've got another question up from Ruth Happel. And Ruth says, what do you think of posting photos online? Are you concerned about images being stolen? Do you literally or virtually watermark, or just free them into the vastness of cyberspace? Josh, I'm gonna let you go with this one, man.
Well, I guess to me, I don't know what they mean by online. Does that include social?
I would say anything that's not on your hard drive and is connected to the internet is online.
Yeah, I really don't. I don't post to social at all. I'm actually not really involved in social at all, because once you give Mark Zuckerberg your photos, he can do whatever he wants with them, and I don't like that. I mean, he's made a lot of money off of people's photos. So I mean, personally, I don't like that. That's a whole other discussion. In terms of other places, I mean, I do post photos online. And I don't watermark them. I think it's actually pretty easy for a lot of people to remove the watermark. So I don't think it's worth the time. And it's a little bit, obfuscation through obscurity. There's not a lot of people at the moment trafficking through my photos, so I'm not terribly worried about it at the moment, but I'm not a professional photographer, so it's easy for me to say.
Yeah. I think that whole thing is an issue. We've done whole discussions about watermarking and should you watermark, and does it really help anything? And we've done shows on copyright infringement and copyright as it applies to watermark, and the consensus about watermarking, and this is from people with law degrees, is that that's not going to help you. If you haven't registered your image with the Copyright Office, some watermark text on there is not gonna really do much good for you. All right, here's another question. Oh, look at this. This is perfect. A good segue from. Is this Janet Robinson? Yes, Janet Robinson. Okay, Janet Robinson says, do you copyright your photos with the Copyright Office? I know a photographer whose work was stolen, but he could prove his copyright. Do you guys? Well, Josh, you're not shooting professionally, so I would guess you're probably not registering. Martin, what about you? Are you shoot, or Josh? Are you registering?
No, I don't. I think that's a fantastic way to go, though. I would definitely do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to when it was easy to do it. I used to do it with the U.S. Copyright Office, and basically I used to do it like quarterly, and I used to just upload a whole bunch of images saying this is my work for this quarter. And the last time I did that, they said, well, you actually can't just do it in batches like that. You've got to do it per shoot and all of this. And I tried to get them to understand that, that's how I've been doing it for years. And they said, we're changing the way we do it. I says, okay, fair enough. Don't care. And I haven't done it since. But, I know that a court of law will not take a case if it's not registered in some countries, but Australia and most countries, actually, the copyright is your right from the moment you release the shutter.
Right.
You don't have to register it to actually own the copyright. I own the copyright for every image that I've ever shot.
Yeah.
And as to whether I'm worried about them being stolen, I think it's a Pixie account, and I have around 80,000 images that have been stolen. And if I set the dogs on them, I could probably eat for a year. And I should actually put the time aside. Here's my dilemma. I also sell my work through stock agencies, and stock agencies are notoriously bad at tracking and giving the photographer information on who has actually bought a license to use your images. So I went to Offset, my agency, and said, I need to know a list of who's bought licenses, because I've got this 80,000 or so images. They're being used everywhere, and I don't know who's bought a license or not. And they said, well, just send us the ones that you think are really bad and we'll follow it up. And they never did. So I'm thinking that at some point when I've got a bit of time, and it's probably been another year or so knowing me, I'm going to sit down and go through that account and just set the dogs on. The thing with this company that I have looking for my images is they only make money if they win a case, and they only go after someone if you say, okay, this one, go and see what's happening with this. Mm-hmm. And they do it in such a way that if that person does have a legitimate license, all they have to do is say, yeah, we've got a license, here it is. And so I could do that, and I could literally I was talking to Don Komarechka, our mutual friend, mm-hmm. recently, and he has, his signature maple leaf photograph, mm-hmm. That he did with the maple leaves in the snow that make up the Canadian flag. He found that being used on a cycling jersey or a cycling shirt, and he's gone after that. And I don't know how much of this is public, so I'm not going to say too much. But that you can actually, if you follow up on these things, you can get a decent payment back if you can prove that someone's done that sort of stuff. Yeah. So I might do it at some point. At the moment, it's a necessary evil. I have to put my work out there, or I can't attract people to my tours.
Yeah, and you don't want to be dragging legitimate clients into court, right? Or serving. Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it. It. Well, cool. All right. The next question up is from Gigi. Gigi says, "Is it possible for someone to build an app that, if it is dragged by someone, will just go poof, like what happens when you take something off your MacBook?" I'm thinking drag an app, or Gigi, are you saying if someone drags a photo out of I think because iPhoto used to do that, or something used to go poof when you dragged it. I don't know. You need to clarify that, Gigi. I'm not sure what you're saying. She's saying, yeah, a photo. Okay, she says, oops, a photo dragged off. So I guess you're saying, like Josh with Next Photo, someone wants to delete a photo out of there. If they drag it off the screen and you want to delete it, is it possible to have like a UI sort of treatment that makes it disappear in a cloud of smoke or something? I don't want my app doing that, Gigi, by the way, just for the
record. Yeah, it's totally possible. It's just a little flourish.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they have to code it to do that, but it's a flourish.
Yeah. All right. Cool. All right. A flourish. Please don't put a flourish in my version of Next Photo.
I will not delete your photos.
All right. Cool. All right. The last question that we have for the show is from Chris Berry, our community manager. So Chris says, what are 3 ways consumers can learn about how their data is being used? Are there apps that are data hunters, like they will find out how your information is being used for a profit? Kind of like TinEye, I guess, can search for your photos online, and even Google reverse image search. You can drag a photo into that, which I learned from watching catfish, but you can reverse image search an image and have it show you on, at least in from Google's standpoint, where that image is being used. What about our data? Is there a way? I wonder if there's a way to do that. Josh, do you know of any ways of like just checking to see? I mean, we can check to see what our credit report is and if there's bad stuff on there, but what about your overall data?
Right. I don't have the links or anything like that, but I do believe that you can download or get access to the personal information that all the big companies have. I know specifically Facebook lets you download, and I believe Apple just announced that they're doing this as well. I don't know about Google offhand.
You know what, guys? If you followed the GDPR laws, and I know that it's not something that you had to do in the US unless you're marketing to Europe, and then you really should be up on this. As a business owner, if you go to my website and look at my privacy policy, you can actually see that you can request from me to send you all of the data that we carry on your account. And there's also, by law, by the GDPR laws, I have to have a link on my website in each person's user profile that allows them to delete all of the data that I carry on them. Mm-hmm. So this is something that any business that is marketing into Europe should have now by law. So I have a WordPress plugin that will basically take all of the information that I have on any person that requests it, packages it up, and then I have to give it to them. And if I don't do that, I'm breaking the law. Wow. And I also have to have that button that just says delete my account. And that will then go away and delete every piece of information that I have on that person. So, yeah, I mean, these are things that everybody that's doing business, if they're marketing into the GDPR countries in Europe, should be doing.
Yeah. I have a feeling that there'll probably be a grace period or a leniency period with that for the next year or so, and then they'll start finding people to make examples out of. Right? So,
yeah. Well, for breaking GDPR laws, they're saying that they can fine you 10% of your yearly profit or income or something. And I don't know how they would enforce that overseas, but that's what they're saying. Jeez. So it's something that people should be taking seriously.
Wow. What a wonderful world. We should end the show with wonderful world music.
It's been like I'm the Grim Reaper today, aren't I?
You are, man. You're bringing me down, Mark Bailey. Usually that awesome accent brings me up. Today you're like, Moroccan Gestapo. And
I am death.
I am destroyer of dreams. I love it. Well, cool. Well, before we close the show off, Josh, once again, nextphoto.com, if people want to try out your app, right? Any other places where you'd like people to go ahead to check out?
I have a blog that I haven't updated too much at joshuafagans.com you can go to as well.
Awesome. joshuafagans.com and nextphoto.com. Download his app, hammer on it, and give feedback to Josh.
Please.
Also, if you're in the TWiP Pro community, Josh is a member in TWiP Pro, so you can hit him up through there, through DM or message or whatever.
You can also email me from the website.
Cool. There you go. In other words, get in contact with him. Tell him what you think. Get
That's
your features in there. Cool. And Martin Bailey, what about you, man? If people want to stalk you, where should they go?
Just everything's at martinbaileyphotography.com. All of the stuff that I'm doing, I've got some exciting new member levels coming up as well. So, including mentorship, which I'm about to start talking about. Small group, something that's been requested for a while. So I've got that coming up. That's in the pipeline.
Is that new for 2019?
I'm working on it really heavily at the moment, developing all of the areas. I've got some relatively cheap, like $25 a quarter for additional content, $55 a quarter for more content, and then the mentorship where we actually have one-to-one conversations and things is like $250 a quarter. But yeah, that's something that I've got a lot of people have been asking about, and I'm finally making the time to put it together and finishing all of the technical side of that now so that I can hide certain things to people that aren't members. But yeah, that's in the works and I should be announcing that over the next couple of weeks.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, congratulations on that. Lots of changes.
Thank you.
New year. Lots of cool changes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you both for coming on. It's been a great conversation. I don't feel any better about privacy. In fact, I may feel a little worse. So thank you, Josh, for throwing gasoline on my what do you call
pleasure.
it? My fire
My pleasure.
over here. Well, cool. Well, thank you guys for coming on, and we'll see you again on the show very soon. And to all the folks that are watching and listening, if you want to stay up to date with all things photography, you can subscribe to This Week in Photo over at thisweekinphoto.com/subscribe. There you'll find all the stuff that we're doing, and you can also find us on YouTube, thisweekinphoto.com/ or youtube.com/thisweekinphoto, and we're on all your usual suspects in terms of music services. Like we're on Spotify, we're on Pandora, we're all over the place. So wherever you like to consume podcast content, This Week in Photo is probably there. So we're at the end of another episode. Thank you folks for watching. Thanks to everyone in the chat room for submitting your questions and comments and otherwise interacting in there. We'll see you guys next week. It is time to take that lens cap off. This is TWiP.